And here we are, another video. This is covering the entire Heaven's Arena arc, so that is Hunter x Hunter Volume 6, as well as Volume 7. I do not own Volume 7, I'm sorry. And there is so much to talk about in this one, guys. It might actually be too much for one video. And again, this is kind of why I was gonna do one volume of video, but it's just so hard to put down. And especially because, the entire Heaven's Arena arc are contained pretty much in these two volumes. I thought, well, I might as well just do it. So that's what I did. And as I said in the previous video, this is really where Hunter x Hunter, moving my mic closer, this is really where Hunter x Hunter comes into its own. And that we do that because of the Nen reveal, right? So I've been talking about Nen throughout these videos because obviously it is important, it is the power system, but I am convinced that it is prevalent throughout early in the series, and it is confirmed here that yes, Nen was a thing that existed in Togashi's mind. And how do we know that? Well, because during the during the Hunter exam, Illumi and Hisoka both use Nen. We kind of suspected that. I mean, I know it because I've read this series before, but you can suspect that, right, if you just are going in blind because, oh, these are weird powers, right? That's not a thing so far. Right? People are just strong, right? But no, it's like, well, Hisoka clearly has this affinity with cards and throwing them and slicing and dicing with them, and then Illumi has these needles that can control people. They can like physically change his appearance, like pretty wild stuff. And while you can kind of maybe think, well, maybe it's just some weird acupuncture thing, like, no, there's definitely something to it. And even, again, like we've talked about bloodlust and stuff, and that's confirmed here in this volume. That is an aspect of Nen called Ren, where Ren is like you are channeling your aura basically in an offensive way. It kind of works like Conqueror's Haki in One Piece. I wouldn't be surprised if they were somehow born from the same idea, which is essentially Ki from Dragon Ball. That's essentially what it is. It's like spirit energy in Yu Yu Hakusho, but much more. So, gosh, sorry. They meet a little boy named Zenshi who has been training for months to obtain his Nen, right? But Gon and Killua are in this kind of time limit because of the Heaven's Arena fight, and so Zenshi's or Zushi's mentor Wing basically forces the Nen out of them. But then it's still a process of learning and refining it, right? So in this entire arc, while Gon and Killua have their auras awakened, they have yet to develop their Hatsu, which is like their specific type of Nen. So we know that Gon is a transmuter, I think. Oh my gosh, I should know that. And then Killua is, I believe, an enhancer. Oh my gosh, no, what am I saying? I should look this up. I just read this. Let me just make sure of myself. Okay, Gon is the enhancer, my bad. And I believe Killua is the transmuter. Right? Because Killua turns his aura into electricity. That sounds like a transmuter ability. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I was right. I just had it reversed. My bad. Anyways, so we have quite a few types of aura. So we have enhancers. Basically, with enhancers, they can enhance either an aspect of themselves or just themselves, or like an object, right? The transmuters change the quality or aura. They change it to something else, right? So like Killua, he transmutes his his aura into electricity. Hisoka does that as well with Bungie, right? Conjurers create their objects, as you will see plenty of conjurers later. Manipulators, basically, they can control things, whether they be animate or inanimate. Emissors detach that aura from their body. And then there's specialists, and specialists are just kind of a wild card. They can kind of do whatever. It's complicated, right? but that's essentially that. And then, so the way that you find out what kind of aura you have is, well, at least the way Wing does it, it's with the water divination test. So you fill up a glass of water, you put a leaf on it, you channel your aura around it. So depending on what happens to the water, that determines your aura. And it's a thing where really someone can refine their Nen in whatever aura. It's just going to be not as efficient. It's better to do it to the one you're attuned to, right? Because again, as I said before, the thing with Nen is it's all about really understanding yourself. And if you're not going to be willing to invest in the aura that you were born with the affinity for, do you really know yourself, or are you just trying to be something else, right? Like if you think, oh, enhancers are so cool, oh, but I'm a transmuter, like you're not embracing yourself in that way, right? So you will never be an excellent enhancer, but you would be if you train a good transmuter. It's like that. So with the test, basically, if the amount of water changes, you're an enhancer. That happens to Gon. If the color changes, you're an emitter. If the leaf moves, you're a manipulator. If something appears in the water, you're a conjurer. And if the taste changes, you're a transmuter. And then if just anything else happens, you're a specialist. So Gon does it, quantity of water changes, he's an enhancer. Killua does it, and they taste it, it tastes sweet. It's a transmuter. But even then, it's like, first time they do it, it's not very noticeable. Then as they refine their aura, then it becomes more noticeable. So we also get the name for the type of Nen where you contain it and you become almost invisible, and that's the Zetsu. So again, that's what I theorized that Gon was actually kind of tapping into during the badge hunts, because it's really impressive that he can evade not only Hisoka but Illumi, who are both Nen users, right? So that says to me that he probably was using Zetsu, and Gon and Killua are like naturally talented Nen users. That's something Wing finds out really quickly. So I really wouldn't be surprised with that. Now, something else I want to talk about, just for the types of Nen and types of aura, I mean, is Hisoka during the battle with Gon. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but during that battle, Hisoka basically deduces the type of Nen that Gon has, and it's due to his personality, right? And it's revealed in a volume extra for volume 7 that, and I have it right here, that he has actually a personality test that he says is not quite possibly 100% accurate, but it helps him in the moment especially. So he says that enhancers are simple and determined, and that definitely describes Gon, right? And manipulators are logical and they do things at their own pace. Transmuters can be whimsical, but they're also liars. And I think Hisoka specifically states that they can break their friendships easily, which is a little concerning considering Killua, but I mean, I'll get to Killua later in this arc because he's fantastic in it. Emitters are impatient and not detail-oriented. Specialists are independent and charismatic, and then conjurers are high-strung. That's according to him. So you take it with a grain of salt, but it's interesting, and it's kind of a fun way to look at the series and look at the characters. So I really love Nen. I think Nen might be, it probably is my favorite power system in anything, and there's a lot of reasons why for that. It's very clear that Nen is heavily inspired by, like I said, Ki from Dragon Ball and stands also from JoJo, right? Because stands are in physical, well, as physical as they can be, manifestations of your fighting spirit, right? And whatever you dream, whatever you aspire for, it is reflected in your stand, right? But the stands are in a way kind of autonomous, where you can't really exactly determine every aspect of your stand, right? Like, it will ultimately reflect you, but it's more of involving your subconscious, right? And so if a stand has limitations, I mean, it's really, it feels kind of random sometimes, and especially that stand stats are like actually random, like they don't, or like you said, they don't mean anything, is very disappointing. And Nen is not like that. Nen is first of all, it's very like philosophical actually, because it requires a deep understanding of yourself, because Nen isn't something that just naturally comes. Well, we do all have aura, and anyone can learn Nen, but the type of Hatsu that you mold for yourself is entirely unique to yourself, right? So, like, for example, Hisoka, with his bungee gum, he modeled it after his favorite brand of chewing gum. And then, forgetting his name, but the guy with the tops, get Goatee, I think it's Goatee. Um, it's mentioned that while he might not be super attuned to that type of Nen, I forgot the type that it is, but he has a natural affinity with those tops, so it came a little easier for him. So it's really cool that you have to really know yourself, right? And the way that you make your Nen not only unique but also really powerful is you need to set limitations for yourself, which seems kind of weird, but it's tied to willpower, because if you just kind of set yourself up as having the best Nen ever, right? That doesn't really say much about what you really are. What you really are comes out through limitation, through compromise. And so it's very common in the series that you'll see the like characters who are really powerful have all these self stipulations. We don't really see that here, but it is something that occurs prevalently throughout the series. So there's that. What else do I like about Nen? I mean, I just really like that it's so versatile. It's so versatile. I mean, again, no ability is the same. Not a single one. And I think that's really cool. It's technically true for stands, and it's technically true for Devil Fruit, but it's like, come on, like, there are certain things that are very similar to each other, right? And then I think the last thing that I'll say that I really like about Nen, an element that I really like, is that it allows, since Nen is directly tied to your self-image, your self-worth, then characters who are introduced very early in the series, if they're charismatic and interesting, if they're good characters, basically, they will stay very. In fact, not only will they stay very powerful, they will get more powerful as the series goes on. That's why characters like Hisoka are prevalent throughout the whole series, and he just gets stronger and stronger as his character develops more. And I think that's just genius. And I can't imagine the brain power that Togashi needs to have in order to juggle all of this. He's juggling where are the characters at emotionally and mentally and physically as well. Where are they at there for a fight? How is that reflected in their Nen? And then also it's like with the Nen, like I said, it's like you can be a transmuter, but you have elements that bleed into the other auras that are closer to that in the wheel, and then as you get farther away, your affinity drops, but you can still access those. Like you can have like 70% efficiency, right? And so you can get certain attributes, like Hisoka does that as well. So it's like keeping track of that as well, like the subcategories of Hatsu, all of it, like it's just so much, and I'm constantly impressed, and it shows in the fights, because there are very few series that have fights to the degree of Hunter x Hunter, and that's what makes this arc really great, because it's just fights. And while the initial villains are not very good, they're not very interesting, they're kind of like just corny, scummy, evil characters, but it is very satisfying to see them just get completely whooped, because of how much they underestimate these kids, right? We get that great moment with Gon where he just knocks over Goatee, breaks the top that he's bouncing on, just bam, gets him in the head, and is like, if you, he just threatens him, basically. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it's so great, because they were messing with them, they were lying to him, they were blackmailing them, basically, and it's just so great to see them get beaten in. Not really much else to say about that. It is kind of cool that when they're first introduced, simply by just having Nen, the Gon and Killua feel the Ren coming out of them and they're intimidated, but then they just completely steamroll them. And including Gon uses his fishing pole, which is a lot of fun, because he doesn't really get to use that as often as he should. I'm moving the mic a little closer just in case. Then the real star of the show is the Hisoka versus Gon fight. I mean, it's just incredible. it's just incredible. I will say, kind of a criticism is in all of the fights in this arc where Gon uses his Nen, at some point he lifts part of the floor up. Granted, he does different things with it each time, and I actually really like the way he uses it against Hisoka because it gives him that element of surprise when he shatters it and sends all the pieces forward. And I believe, I don't think it's explicitly stated, but I believe Gon enters Zetsu, and that's why he's able to basically appear on the other side without Hisoka noticing. Um, yeah, that's cool that he uses it differently, but it's like still he throws the floor 3 times. That's a little underwhelming, but it is the best in the Hisoka fight. And again, that fight's just incredible. And to see Gon land a punch on Hisoka, which that was really his whole goal. Gon and Killua never had the aspiration to win the Heavens Arena, and that's kind of a cool subversion of the shonen trope. Because usually when you have the tournament arc, it's like they have to win the tournament, right? They have to prove something. But in Hunter x Hunter, essentially, they're just like, oh, we need money. I mean, Gon has the ulterior motive of he just wants to fight Hisoka again, and sort of a subversion, I guess. I don't know if I'd call this a subversion, just maybe atypical. But Gon loses the fights. That's a really big deal, and Hisoka kind of tells him, hey, next time we fight, it's gonna be out in the open. There's gonna be no rules. It's gonna be to the death. Spoiler: they have not fought since, and I don't think they will because of certain circumstances currently in the manga. Now, you could say that this is a drop plot point, and quite a few people will call this a drop plot point, but I don't think it is, and here's why. I want to explain. This isn't like a copium post. Like, I really believe this. I believe that Hunter x Hunter's story follows a lot of real world logic. Everything kind of flows. Like, while it can seem really random and crazy the way these arcs kind of bounce around, if you actually read it or watch it, whatever, there is a flow. There is a natural sense of progression. It's handled very naturally and realistically, and I think that's true for stuff like this. Of course, Hisoka and Gon have this desire to fight, but reality comes in, guys, and reality isn't always going to paint this pretty narrative that flows, right? First of all, it's it's not even like their shared dream. Like, Gon doesn't really care. He just felt humiliated by Hisoka, and he kind of got his win here by just punching him and giving his badge back. Hisoka's the one that was very attached to Gon, but ultimately Gon was just like a plaything to him, because we learn here that Hisoka has a true big goal, and that is to kill the spiders, right? The Phantom Troop. And so it's like Gon was not his priority, you know. Everything that happens with Chrollo Lucifer in the York New City arc, that is really the main plot for Hisoka. As for Gon, I mean, we all know Gon has his dream, which is to find his father, right? So why does he need to fight Hisoka? Like, really, he has no reason to. So, if anything, I think it'd be contrived if they did have their rematch, and I think it's very mature and natural that they don't. That their lives just go on different paths. They both have their own dreams that were already set up, right? Like, we knew from the beginning Gon wants to find his father, and we learn here in this volume that Hisoka wants to kill the spiders, right? In a great scene where he's showering, and it's revealed that he has a spider tattoo, but then he pulls it off, and it appears to be fake. It's such a good fake out. Speaking of spiders, I mean, this might be I mean, do I really care about spoilers? Like, if you're watching this, I don't know. Anyways, I'll just say it. Speaking of spiders, we see Machi. It's one of my favorite characters, and she's kind of like reluctantly helping Hisoka. And it's funny because Hisoka tries to ask her on a date, and Machi just completely gives him the cold shoulder. But this leads into, I'm going all over the place. There's so much to talk about with this arc. But Hisoka's fight before Gon with, I'm forgetting his name. It starts with a K. Let me see. Castro? Yeah, it is Castro. Who is really like a nothing character. But it's funny because he's deliberately a nothing character, because he kind of comes off as someone who seems extremely powerful, and he even tells Killua like, "Oh wow, your Nen is really special," when Killua had just barely started practicing it. And while that seems kind of just the trope of, oh, our main characters are really gifted, which they are, like, I'm not trying to downplay that, but ultimately Castro's a fraud. And it turns out that he put all of his energy and mind and spirit investing into this type of Hatsu that he's really not attuned for and is very flashy but ultimately not that great. Basically, he can create a copy of himself, but Hisoka is just toying with him this entire fight, and it appears that he's getting his ass whooped, but it turns out it's the complete opposite. He's in control the whole time. But what I love about this fight, and I think this fight is pure genius on a narrative level, is we are thrown in the dark. This is before we learn about Hisoka's Nen. This is before we learn about like really how complicated Hatsu is, and we experience it, and we're just as confused as Castro and the Heavens Arena audience. And then Hisoka wins, and it's kind of like, what happened? And then we get the play-by-play because Gon made this pact basically, and he cannot watch this fight. So Killua goes and watches it, and he records it. And so, as part of the training, they're watching this tape, and their job is basically to really understand what is going on. So as they are learning about the fight, so are we. And so we to get these kind of flashbacks through the VHS tape back into the fight, these rewind moments, and they're like, okay, here, this is the technique that he used. It's so good. And then by the end, it's like we completely understand. We understand Hisoka's bungee Nen. We understand that he can duplicate the appearance of things minus the texture. He uses that to cover up his wounding, his mend for his arm. And so much, there's so much that happens here. Like, it's so insane. The fact that Hisoka can, in a way, enter Zetsu while using his Nen, so he can, like, hide his aura, basically. So when he's shooting out the bungee aura, you can't even tell. It's crazy. Unless you enter, like, Ren, and then you can really see it. But that requires a lot of aura output for you. So it's such an incredible fight. And then, yeah, Castro's just completely owned. He gets killed. And it's kind of funny that he is sort of a poser, right? A fraud. And he comments on Killua's Zetsu ability. And it's like he probably wasn't that great at the time. But to Castro, he was. Because Castro is like a fish out of water, ultimately, pretending not to be some. We also get the reveal that Heaven's Arena, this whole thing, is actually like a secret part of the Hunter exam. And now that Gon and Killua are developing their own Nen, that they are like really officially hunters now. The reason why is because in order to be a hunter, you really need to be a Nen practicer because it just puts you in a whole other league compared to other people. But they can't make it a part of the actual exam because Nen is so powerful. They don't want everyone to access it, even though anyone can access it. So in a way, they're kind of gatekeeping this power, and that could be argued that it's sort of leading into this almost like caste system, which it very much is, and that's kind of brought up in not only the Chimera Ant invasion, but especially in the Succession War arc, because like it reminds me of Morena with her Contagion Nen, and she's basically like forcing Nen out of all these people who otherwise wouldn't have found their own Nen, and it's really terrifying to think of this huge population. Well, not huge, like what is it, 23 people? But if any of them hit level 100, they can then infect more people. More people can awaken their Nen and artificially inflate it. So it's like really terrifying to imagine, like if that population is just let out into the world, like what's gonna happen? Like that could be really calamitous, and it is true. Like I don't think everyone should learn Nen because it is really dangerous. But also, I kind of feel like while anyone can learn Nen, I don't think anyone really can learn Nen. What I mean by that is it requires such significant willpower and self-understanding that I think a lot of people just kind of not naturally can't do, but a lot of people don't have that drive, you know? So, I don't know. It's interesting. It's very interesting. There's a lot to think about there. And again, this is like a really early arc for Hunter x Hunter. So the fact that it's already kind of planting the seeds for that discussion that is very prevalent in the Succession War arc is really cool. Um, do I have anything else to say about the Heaven's Arena fight? I mean, like I said, the kind of three main villains at first are just kind of, they're fine. No, they're not fine. They're kind of suck. They're just like very uh, generic. Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's all I have to say. I mean, this was mostly just a Nen discussion, but I mean, it definitely warrants that, you know. So, next is the York New City arc. I'm very excited. It is probably my third favorite, possibly second. I'm not sure. We'll see how this reread affects it. Because right now, I think for me, while it's not over yet, Succession is definitely number one. I want to say Chimera Ant is number two. We'll see if that changes. I know Chimera Ant's a little controversial, but honestly, I blame the anime mostly for that. Because most people complain about the pacing, and that sounds like an anime problem. I had a great time reading it. And I think the art actually is kind of at its peak during Chimera Ants, and that's something that doesn't translate well into the 2011 anime. Um, yeah, I mean, not much else to say. Hisoka is incredible in this arc. Gon and Killua have a lot of great developments. I wish we could see Lorio and Kurapika, because I would love to see their kind of Nen training. Well, Kurapika already had Nen, but you know what I mean. But, I mean, there's a time and place for that. I think it's kind of nice that they get separated, because then it makes their reuniting in York New City all the more special. Okay, yeah, that's it for this video. Until next time, happy hunting.